Okay, so you're able to hear me, right? Okay, yeah. So any questions on previous classes? Very good. Okay. Yeah. So today, so we are continuing with the next topic, which we have stopped at last class. That is in the proxy SQL. So in previous class we discussed about how you can create the tables and modify the tables. You can drop the tables and create the data, like how to insert the data. Now you can going to discussing about how you perform the query on once after for the particular data set, like you can how to modify it, how to combine it, how to create a new columns, new variables. Like these are the more performing that what can do with the proxy SQL that we are going to discussing now. So the first basic thing is just using the select clause. So the general syntax for doing any proxy SQL, any SQL query, not only here in outside also, like this is about the SAS SQL when we call it. When you see the Oracle SQL, when you see the Java SQL, when you see Teradata SQL, any query that you are going to perform, that the order must be followed same. This is the order that you have to write it. First, you have to write the select. So if you are creating the table, you have to write the first create table, then select, then from class. After the from class, where class. After the where, group by, then having, then order by. So this is the order that you have to follow every time. Okay. So the general syntax for the array select statement is like select employee ID. These are the column names that you are going to gather. So each column need to be separated by comma and use the from class and specify the table name. So these are table name. So when you say table means it's data set name. Any data set that you're going to use the data set name, and then use the where condition. So when you specify the where means you're subsetting the data, means you're filtering the data, the particular condition. So when you specify order by, it means order by nothing but it's sorting the data in ascending order or descending of the particular variable wise. Okay. And the next one is, this is how, what is the use of select statement. So what exactly we can use in select statement. So when we use select statement, selects the data that meets certain conditions, like you want to do the certain so select the data from the existing table. Because in the previous class we discussed about how you're going to create the data set and how you're going to insert the data set. It means you have created one data set. So once you create the data set, you want to perform some queries on that particular data set. So the first thing is, to perform the data set, you need to select the data, what kind of columns you wanted, what kind of data that you wanted. Select those columns. So that select the data that meet certain conditions. So for selecting that, you need to specify which select statement you want to use it. Select the data that meets certain conditions. And you can group the data and specify an order of the data. So you can specify an order of the data and formats the data. And you can do the like this. You can do up to 32 tables. You can join or combine the data. So these are the features that we can do with the select statement. So this is a general syntax. So to retrieve the data from the table. So now we have some existing data set. So maybe that is in the any database or local system or somewhere, but the data is already created in the form of SAS data set. Because if the data is in Excel, you cannot read that. The data must be in the form of SAS data set. Then only you can retrieve the data from the particular table or data set. So once you to retrieve the data, you have to use the select statement. If you are familiar with the table, you can specify the column names to be printed in the select statement. So print employee, job code, salaries. If you are familiar with the table. So proc equal select employee, job code, salary, like this. So if you are not familiar with the table, you have to go to the use of proc content procedure to and look at those column names. What are the different columns are there in each and every table, and retrieve the data. Yeah. So to retrieve the data, we can use the select statement. So if you know the column names, you can specify which columns you wanted. But if you don't know the column names, you want to retrieve everything, then you have to use star. So if you put the star here, it will select everything from the particular table. Let's take some examples here. Yeah. So this is how the data. So we have the data. It's called as data set. Now we created the data set. So this is what we have now data. Now I'm going to use this data set to create use the select statement and use the data, print the data like that. So use proc equal. Now select. If you know the column names, you can use it. No, I don't know anything in the particular table. Just use star from class the table that you have, the data set. Just print statement. If you run it, whatever the data that you have, all the data will be displayed in the output file. All the data. So this is sometimes it's if the table is very big, it's very difficult to use it. If means all the, if the data you're printing means it will take huge time and it's sometimes you will get the space issues also. So that's always try to minimize the data. So if you want to select the specific rows, you can do that by applying that. But if you want the specific columns, you need to type manually here. Instead of star, just specify what column you want it. Name like this. So it will get, I will see only 3 column data. So if you don't want, so by default, the data will be displayed in the output file. If you don't want it, just use no print option here. If you specify the no print, the data will not be written into the particular output file. Okay, so this is how, but you cannot see the data also. So always try to use a create table or like any without no print. So now how to restrict the number of observations. Suppose you have the data set. In the data set, you have some millions of data, millions of records. Now to limit the number of observation while reading or while writing, how you can use it? What are the different options? So to limit the number of observation while for reading, then you can use in OBS equal to 10. When you specify the in OB equal to 10, it will only read the data 10 observation. That 10 observation will be displayed in the output file. It means in means you are reading only. It means every time it will take only 10 observations. It means 10 records. So similarly, if you have out OBS, if you specify out OBS, it will also write only. It means here you can use any queries, any joining or anything. But finally, you will see only 10 observation in the output file. So these options will tell you that like how to display, how to print the data, like okay, so how to minimize to read the data. So these 2 options majorly useful whenever you want to see the sample data from the file. Like do you want to see what kind of data that you have, what kind of column name that you have it. So that will tell you that like what are the different columns, what type of data that you have. Okay. So those are the options majorly we use. Select statement. Now there is similarly we have one other option called feedback. So this feedback option majorly tells you that it will elaborate your query. Suppose if you use the star here, then you don't know what are the different columns. Then if you use this option, it will tell you that all the columns that you have in the table, it will show you in the log file. It means the star will elaborate with all the columns with the list. So this will tell you the table name dot column name, table name dot column, and this information will be shown in the log file. You cannot see in the output, but you can see in the log file. So this feedback option, majorly we need to know what are the different columns are there in that particular table. That will show in the output file. Along with that, also it will also display the data in the output. So it's not only one option you can use it, you can use multiple options here. If you specify the no print, the data will not be printed. So if you want to see only column names from the table, then use these two options without printing any data. Even if you want it, you can also use it in OBS. So it means each and every option is separated by space and the right number of options, whatever the options that you have it. Okay, any questions? Okay, now the next option is you are going to create a new columns. To create the new column means you need to use the existing column, or without having any column also you can create it. What exactly that means? So it means if you want to create a new column, it means you are going to do some calculation. If you do some calculation and you have to create a new column, then you'll get to know that. To create the new column, like, let's see. So now I have the column called height. Now I want to calculate the percentage from the height. I wanted to calculate 20% of the height. Then what you have to do, you have height 0.20. If you multiply with the 0.20, then you will get the 20 percentage as a 20% of the height. Right? 69. 20% is like 13.8. So this is nothing but this is a new column that you have calculated and created from the by using the existing column. So for this you can also do, like in SQL also you can do calculate these type of columns. And you can give the name. Now you can see here. So this is a calculation part. They are creating the variable, giving some different name. So to give the different name, you have to use as an alias. So whatever the calculation that you did, that particular calculation results you are saving into the new column that you need to specify as keyword. So calculate a new column from the existing columns and name it as a new column using the as keyword. So with expressions. So when you say expressions means you can do the some for whatever any SAS functions that you can use in the dataset level. Creating any SAS functions you can do that. So like say this is the employee job code. Today is a SAS function and minus of date of birth. So date of birth is a one column. So you're calculating the age. To calculate it, we have to calculate the number of days and divided by 365 days. Then you'll get the number of years. So this is what the is as age. This will be called as expressions under the calculations. So like this, you can do the n number of calculations in a one particular table, but you need to use either you have to use existing column or any SAS functions. Even though if you want to create a new column with a blank, you can also do that. So I'm creating the one blank. So that if it that depending upon like what type of column that you are going to create. If you are going to create Like numerical, just use as number is calculated. If you want a character, just use the space in the code. You have to specify. Then it created a blank column. It means we are not using any formula, any function, or anything. Just using dummy name. So if you want to use Sas functions, that use it will create a new column with the today's date, the number. Okay. Now this number I want to display in a Sas normal date format. Then what we have to use? You have to use a format statement. So you remember that we used whenever you want to display the format, we have to change the format of the particular number date. Then you use the format statement, right? So here also you use the format equal to. So then specify what format you want. Date 9 format. I don't know you need. See? So this is how you can use it. Okay. Any questions till now? Yeah, we'll go to the next one. So specifying all rows in a table. So you can use a star, you can register all the columns. So now the next version is eliminate the duplicate rows. It means suppose if you never know that if the particular data set or any table contains duplicate data. So how you are going to remove those duplicate records? So you use the distinct keyword, then automatically all the duplicate rows which are repeated in the table level will be deleted. It will be dropped from the table. I'm going to create one data set, the dummy name. I'm keeping only 2 columns. We use keep statement here. Then I'm running. Now created the data set class 2. If you see here, this data contains duplicates, right? So let's see. So female, you can say this is a duplicate data, and this male 12 is also duplicate. Means it's repeated. Whenever you say duplicate, means the same record is repeated more than once. Now I want to remove these duplicates. Then how you are going to use proxy select distinct. So when you specify the distinct, means automatically if any value is repeated, any record is repeated, that will be dropped. Distinct star. So when you say star, it means all the columns. See, it's repeated. Yeah, even the log row you can see this. You don't see. But if you see the data, it's deleted. Now I want to save this information and create a new data set. Then you have to use create statement. Create table. As use, it will create the new table with all the duplicate data which is deleted. Okay, so this is how we can use a distinct keyword. It means we have to remove the duplicate data in the table level. So eliminating the duplicate rows, that we did that now. Subsetting with the data. When you say subset means to apply the where condition, retrieve the specific data. Subset the data. So out of 100 rows, I want to see only top 10 rows or some based on a particular condition you are retrieving the data. So means part of the data that you are extracting from the main table. To subset the data, we have to use the where condition. Whenever you say where condition means you have to apply some condition on the data level. It like where salary greater than or height greater than 100 centimeters or less than 100 centimeters, greater than 200 centimeters. Like those type of things where like age equal to 12. Only people whose age is 12, I want to see the data. So that kind of information, that kind of logic that you want to do, that we call a subset. Now here we got it right. I'm using the where age equal to 12. Only age equal to 12. See, I have only people only two. There are only 5 records. Nothing but this we called as a subsetting with age only 12. So like this we can do the anything. But to do that we have to use a where condition. Now subset the calculated values. So now because here we are doing the calculation, but I want to apply the condition on this subset, this calculation value. Then you have to use this calculation. What cal you want? Are less than or equal to? Great, less than or equal to 12. So less than or equal to 12 with all the people who age 12 and 3. Now, if you want to use, then you cannot use this new variable because this is not an existing variable from the data set. So you have to use a calculated formula. If you want to use this variable, then you have to put the keyword called. Then you will get it. So, but if you use the like this, you will get the error message. Means the variable is not there. The following column are not found in the contributed table. This is calculated field, so we have to use formula or a calculate keyword. Then only you can subset the data. So the next one is order by. So what is mean by order by? It means you are ordering the data in ascending order or descending order. Means sorting simply in ascending order, descending order. If you don't specify just anything, by default it will take an ascending order. Okay. You can see here the data. But if you look at the age, the data is not sorted. Or if you look at the height, the data is not in any order, not in a particular order. So now I want to sort this data. Then you have to use order by. by age. If you specify the order by age, the data will be sorted by age. See, now it's the same data I want in a descending order. Just use after the variable, just use the descending. DES is the shortcut for the descending. Okay, so this is how. So by default it's ascending order, but if you use a DS descending order. So here you can specify the variable name as this, or you can specify the position of the variable in the select class that you are using. So when you say position means like I want to see name, but instead of specifying the name I can specify 1 or I can specify 2, because age in the second position, right? Based on that, so I specify the 2, then data will be ordered. You don't see any error message. It means like either you can use the position of the column in the select statement or variable name directly. So in this case, whatever, the data will be automatically sorted. So like this, you can use the name. Okay, either 2, 3, it means thus it will sort the data based on the age and sex. Age and sex. So age in ascending order, sex variable in descending order. Okay, now I don't want to specify 3. I want the exact variable name. So like this also, one variable you can specify the position, one variable you can specify the column name. That is also works. So you can use a mixed case or complete variable name or complete column variable name positions. You can use it. So enhancing the output. So we just saw that format. So we can also use a label statement to give the label anything to give the detailed description of the particular value or column name. So this is also one of the simple variable. So just add the text to the particular variable. Now summary functions, we can also use any summary functions like sum, mean, max, any statistical summary functions that we can use it to get the value to do any calculations, like some of those things, or maximum of minimum of any like those things you can also use. So if you want to see salary, average salary. And there is one more function called monotonic. So this function will majorly give you the order number, like a we call it sequence number or whatever we call it, like row number. So monotonic as a row number means it will give us 1, 2, 3, 4. What is the observation number in the data set? Which how many number of observation? Each and every observation number will be created as a new column and will shown in the output. So let's see this. See, row number 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 7 rows. The next one is grouping. So whenever you do the grouping, nothing but you want to do the multiple values created. Either you can do the sum or maximum or minimum. You are creating one value, multiple values in a particular column level. Create a one value. You give the some result of a grouping of the data. So classify the data into group based on the value for one or more columns. So use the whenever you are going to use the group by, so you have to use the statistics function. At that particular function require more than one argument. So each unique value of the grouping column, let's see this. So display the average salary of each code. So average salary, let's go here. So now I want to see the average height for each 6 variable likewise. Then you can get this. Average height. So when you specify the average height, this is a statistic function, this is a variable, but this is we are not applying any function here. So you have to choose that is a group by variable. Group by. So you have to specify that variable. It means for each 6 variable wise, you are calculating the average height. So the average height for the female is 6, the average height for male is 60. Similarly, if you want age, specify the age like this. But whatever the variable that you are used, whatever the variable that is not having any group by function, that variable you have to specify in the group by statement. Height. If you want both the variables, you can use it. Say female wise age, average heights, male wise female like this. So we can do that. So any questions? So the next one is like having. So now if you want to analyze the groups of the data, now if you specify the star, there is another function called count. So you know that star means all the records. So you want to calculate the total number of records in a particular data set, then you have to use a count of star. It means you are going to use a count of star. So when you say count of star, then you will get the total number of records in a particular table. There are total 90 records. You can give the column name. Now, if you want to this count by a particular variable wise, then use the group by. So if you specify the count of star means you are taking complete all the records irrespective of the variable. But if you want a particular age wise, you want to calculate each age how many number of records. Like this, there are around 5 records for this particular age 12. So this is how we can use it. So the next one is having class. So having class means like applying the condition on group of the after grouping the value. The where class selects the data by individual rows based on the value of the individual rows. To select the entire group of the data, that you have to use having class. So like here you got the count, but I want to see the data where count is less than or equal to 3. Where I want to see only the data, I want to see the data only where the count is less than or equal to C. So then you have to use a group by as easily. Then you have to use having what is the variable that you are using. That variable you have to, what is the statistics, what is the function. Then you use that count of is get less than or equal to 3. So this is called as having. So whenever you are going to apply the grouping of the data, particular condition on the grouping data, then you have to use having. But if you use a where, it will take the individual rows. It won't do any grouping kind of thing. So that's the difference between the where and having. Yeah, so this is about the basic calculation that we can do with the SQL. Now we are going, next step is we are going to do the performing the joins. Okay, now combining the data. So here we are going discussing how we are going to do with the SQL. Then what are the advantages with the SQL? What is the disadvantage with the SQL? Because the same operation, the same thing that you can do with the data step also. In the data step also we use the set statement, merge statement, we can do the joins. But in SQL level, how you are going to do that? So because sometimes this particular SQL is very useful compared to the data step. But in some scenarios, data step is more useful. So in what type of scenarios that we can use more powerful compared to data step? So first thing is combining the data. So this combining data can be happen in horizontal and vertical, like side by side and one after the other. Okay. So whenever you say combine the table horizontally, it means we call it as a joins. Okay, we call it as a joins. Joins combine the table horizontally side by side. So whenever you're joining the two tables side by side, you need to have the at least common column. If you don't have the common column, the data will be created in the Cartesian product. let's let's see this. So in joins, there are merely two types: inner join and outer joins. So the definition for the inner join is common data between the two tables. So whenever you're going to use inner join, it means at least column one column should be there. It has some matching data, both the tables. Even though if the different column name, it's fine. But if the data is there, you want to see between both the data, it has common data, then you have to use this joins. That is called as inner joins. It returns only the matching rows in both the tables. It allows the maximum that table that you can use to join the data. So whenever you say outer joins, so it returns also matching rows plus non-matching rows from one or both the tables. Matching and non-matching rows, that kind of information. The outer joins, it performs only two tables. You cannot do more than two tables. So whenever you are going to use two tables, by default it creates the data Cartesian product. So let's see, take the example here. To create two tables. Now I'm joining these two tables. Select star from one comma 2 button. So, so when you run this query, it will join these two tables. Let's see what exactly the output that you will get. Okay. X A, X B, two tables. They joined it. Now let's see what are the how you see the data. See, 1A, 1A. This row has joined all the three rows from the second table. 1A, 2X, 1A, 3Y, 1A, 5A. Similarly, 4B, 4D joined all the three columns. 2B all three columns. So this particular type of join that we call as a Cartesian join. It means all the rows from the table will be joined with all the possible rows in the second table. So like how many number of rows here and how many number of rows here. That will be multiplied, then you will see the data, how that many columns, that many rows in the final table. So this we called as a Cartesian product. Okay. So in real, like in a project level, this particular join is very rarely we used it. But in a normal, like now, at a project level, nobody will be used these type of joins. It's very rarely case that we can use it. Okay, so the number of rows in a Cartesian product, the number of rows equal to product the product of the number of rows in a contributing table. So any questions? Have any question? Okay. Okay, so this is a number of rows here. So like if we have 1000 rows in here, 1000 rows, then you can use the output will get like 10,000, 1 million rows. So the next one is inner join. The inner join is also do the same thing as a Cartesian product, but it restricts the data by using the where class. Like how the rows can be combined. You are restricting some data, but how the rows can be combined. Like the general syntax for inner join is this one. So what will happen? First, it will build the Cartesian product, then applies the specified restriction and removes the rows. So here, this is a Cartesian product, but we are putting some restriction. What kind of restrictions? Where 1 dot x equal to 2 dot. Like in the same criteria, I'm putting where condition where when 1 dot the variable x from first data set equal to from the second data set variable y. It means here x equal to 1 and here x equal to 1. Then only you can see if it's x equal to 4, you can see 2, 2. So it means here 2 is there, here 2 is there. If the value matches, then only you'll see the output. See, here only 2A, 2A, 2B. Only one row we got output. But when you see previously, all the rows, see, only 2. 2 rows matches sets here. 2x, 2x, 2x. It means this is only the one particular row you have matched. In the final output, you will see only this row. So this is called as inner join. Because first it will build the Cartesian product, then you are applying the where condition that will do the give the inner join results. So this is about the inner join. So display all the combination of rows which matching clear. So now what is happening? Okay, here. So unless you are having x a x b means 4 columns you are seeing. But here the column x is repeated twice. So to avoid this type of thing, you have to going to specify the column names. What kind of column that you want from each table. So here star means everything, but instead of star, I'm specifying 1 dot x from the table 1. I'm only selecting x column. This one from table 2. That is a 2. Table 2 is comma a comma table 2. I'm selecting only b. Similarly from table 1 column a. Now let's see. The X column I'm dropping. So you have to specify only that particular column, which column you want in the final output, only specify that particular column. So this is what exactly you do. If the data is repeating, if it has any repeated data twice, then use a distinct also here. If you see that particular data contains any duplicate, the data is repeated, then you use a distinct also. Okay, so this is about the inner join. The next one is outer join. So when you say outer join, the definition of the outer join is it also builds the Cartesian product, and it also pulls the matching rows. But in outer join, along with the matching rows, it also gives the non-matching row from the one or other table. Matching rows from non-matching rows from one table or all the tables. So depending upon the type of the join. So let's take the left join. If we see the diagram here, when you say left means this is the left table and right table. So when you use the left join, all the rows from the left side table and matching rows from the right side table. That is called as the left join. Then how we are going to write the query in the left join? Table 1 left join. After the first table, you have to write what kind of join that you are going to use. If you see the left join means left 2, but you should not use a where. Then use on. Now run it. See, here the left table is 1. What is the 1 data here? 140. This is all the rows from the left side table. And the definition for the left is matching rows. What are the matching rows here? This is only the one matching column. So this we called as a left join. It means all the data from the left side and matching rows from the right side. So opposite the left join is right. Then you can see all the rows from the right side, only matching rows from the left side. So this is about the left and right. And we have one more join called full. Right? So what exactly the full join represents? So it will use all the matching and non-matching rows from both the tables. So then in that case, we don't need to use any where can restrict the data. Sorry, I not used the joins in. See, this is only matching rows. Got it. Non-matching rows. These are non-matching rows from the second table, and these also non-matching rows from the first table. It means both matching rows and non-matching rows from the both the table. You can see the output here. So this we call as a full join. So this is how we can. This is the syntax. So here we should not use the where. We have to use on. Okay, so this is about how we can use outer joins. So instead of what exactly is happening now? If the table name is very big, then you have to use aliases. So what is mean by alias? Let's see here. So here you can see the March, right? That the table name is big. So every time you have to write the table name here. Instead of that, you can use some alias name L. So 1 or 2 letter like names. Similarly here. So when you use alias, the same alias name can be used in the select statement to select the data particular from the particular table. Okay. Yeah, I'll stop here and we'll continue tomorrow with all these SQL joins and what is the major advantage between the SQL join and data step, which is more efficient on what scenarios. Okay. Yeah. So mostly tomorrow at first we can take this one and we'll start with the other topic macros. Okay. Yeah, we'll meet tomorrow. Thank you.